All right. Happy Friday. It is so good to see each and every one of you. And again, you all, we are on the Loyalty and Friends Self Love Podcast. And we have a special guest tonight. Miss Barbara Thomas is in the building, and she is a mental health counselor, advocate, therapist, name it. She has been in all areas when it comes to mental health. And I'm telling you, mental health is our biggest pandemic, as we know, and it's so important that we constantly work on our mental health so we can make sure we're at our wholeness as needed. So, thank you so much, Miss Barbara, for joining. And you all, she did
You're
a brief
welcome.
introduction over on Instagram. So, if you want to see part one of the introductory phase, I do recommend you go back and watch it on Instagram, okay? But it was just a brief introduction so she can tell you like what type of work she has done. She's worked with people from sexual abuse, she's worked with sex offenders, she's worked with individuals, families, all the above, okay, from all walks of life. So I really want to get in this conversation with you. We met on the OWL app. That's kind of where it started. And the conversation was very divine, and it just so happened was your birthday. So happy belated birthday, Queen. Happy
Thank
belated birthday,
you. Thank you.
you
Thank you.
know.
Thank you.
And man, it was just a very divine conversation because through that conversation, you helped me process some things totally different. So, we talked
Mhm.
about how you was the counselor or you was the therapist for some of those who were considered sex offenders, right? So I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? What does that look like? And so let me invite her back up. Give me 1 second, you all. But yeah, what does that look like? You definitely advocated for people from all over, all walks of life. So let's kind of start with your childhood. What did your childhood look like? Because I think, it's important even from the professional end that people can see where you came from, what your background looked like, and what even led you up to want to be an advocate.
So I started out as a child of a teen parent. And as a result of born into parents who were in their early teens, um, my mom, she had just lost her mother. And
Mm.
so through that process, I was a child of a teenager who was in the foster care system. So, in essence, I was born into the foster care system. So, I was introduced to um, social services at birth.
Wow.
And through that process, you know, I kind of felt like there has got to be a better way to interact with individuals who are supposed to help you. And so that kind of propelled my interest in wanting to walk the path of helping others.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's a very powerful story because what I hear is, we hear that happens a lot, teenage pregnancy. And on top of that, she was
Hmm.
grieving the loss of her mom. So she lost her mother at a very young age.
Hmm.
And that's the time when you probably really need your parent because, and especially your mother, because her role as a mom is to teach us how to be, to adapt to the world as an adult. So I can
Hmm.
imagine some of the things you went through, being in that environment, some of the things you saw, and how you wanted
Hmm.
to take what you learned from your environment and to be able to be a blessing and help others through their trauma. I think that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Right. And that you didn't
Absolutely.
stay stuck in it. So I'm pretty sure that
Hmm.
probably has been phases throughout your time or your lifespan where you
Hmm.
possibly had to think counseling for yourself. So what does that look like?
So I would say when individuals who are in the field of social work and they're providing counseling services or therapeutic services, the field itself promotes practitioners to seek out therapy services and counseling services for themselves. Even if we don't identify an issue within ourselves at that time to say that this is what we need to do, it is also very advantageous just to empty out your cup when you're pulling in so many different areas of concern for other individuals that you're helping, and you're basically adding that to your area of concern because you're trying to figure out how can I best help this individual, because there's no cookie cutter provided for, oh, you have ADHD, here's this issue, here's the solution, and this
Right.
should work for you. No, it's just a guideline to say that these are some medical symptoms that we see, and here are some evidence-based interventions that we've identified within the field that have worked with other people. And by identifying evidence-based different types of treatment modalities and sometimes coupling them with psychotropic medications that can also assist an individual with reaching their baseline or a normal baseline for them as an individual so that they can be self-sufficient and so that they can be uh, really comfortable with in themselves and to
Mhm.
identify what's my new strengths, what's my new norm, if there's a change in that process as a result of psychotropic interventions and behavioral modifications and treatment modalities introduced to an individual to find homeostasis, if you will, when they're finding themselves in a position where they are not necessarily feeling like they're producing or presenting their best self to the world or even to themselves. So,
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing. So, something that was dear to me that we discussed was, how what does therapy look like for those who have been sex offenders. And just, in my
mhm,
own opinion, I believe a lot of them are sex offenders due to the fact that they were once offended by someone else. They was on the opposite
mhm,
end of that. And just through our conversation, you did share that majority of your cases are that just that they had been
mhm.
victimized and they became victimized, and you had a very small percentage that maybe wasn't the case. So how you work with those individuals to kind of really break down the challenge, because I feel like sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing something wrong because it was normal behavior for them. So they just acting out what already happened to them.
That's absolutely correct. So, what the research has found and just consistency with working with the population has presented is that most individuals who are in a position where they're labeled as sex offenders or they're receiving services because they have been victimized, um, what eventually comes out is that the person who perped against them was also a victim. Now, what's really most interesting is that individuals who experience the inappropriate introduction to sex most often don't notice it because most people think it's someone that you don't know and that it's the boogeyman that's going to come and get you, and it's someone who has no face and they're going to be aggressive. Now, I'm
Right.
not discounting that because that does happen. It has happened. It's just not a common occurrence for most people. Most people experience it with a neighbor, a close
Mm.
friend, a family member, basically a familiar face. And that comes in the process of what we're known in the field. We utilize the word grooming. So you become comfortable with being in the presence of an individual. So there's no need to have defenses up to say, no, I don't want to try this glass of alcohol, or no, I don't want to try this item that you're smoking, or this pill that you're taking, or no, I don't want to sit on your lap, or I'm not going to say that a stroke down my back for too long appeared odd because I've been around you for, a significant amount of time in my life and everyone trusts you. So why wouldn't I? You know? Um,
Uh,
so those types of introductions to basically laying down what we call a boundary and then pushing the boundary with as many occurrences as frequently as possible to ultimately find yourself in a position where you're being violated. Um, and most people don't identify the non-aggressive or the non-violent or the non-verbal aggressive or the non-verbal abusive language as grooming, when in fact it is. You know, when we think of setting the stage for someone who's not familiar with the process, they think that it's the physical act itself, but it's an entire process that leads
Absolutely.
to that. It's an
And I
entire
think it
process.
even starts with the verbal,
Hmm.
verbalizing certain things, sexualizing certain things that
Hmm.
possibly should be sexualized, and then it comes off more as norm. So my
Hmm.
question to you would be, have you found yourself in a compromising position where you felt sexually violated in some way, form, or fashion, and even maybe by a familiar face?
Oh, and even, yes, and even with a client, I've had to tell clients that I was working with in the ER, you know, yes, you're coming in here and, I need to assess you, but it is not appropriate for you to be massaging yourself in my presence. And it's not appropriate for you to lick your lips and make inappropriate comments. I'm here to give you a mental health assessment. And when you get yourself together, this is what we're going to do. I don't like to talk to people that way, but when you have an individual that is coming through the door that needs to sober up, they don't hear any other language or any other tone unless you're using a firm tone if they're under the influence of something. And
Absolutely.
so, that can be very off putting as a practitioner. I've had the experience of working in the prisons, working with the HIV/AIDS population, individuals who were due to basically discharge and be released and needed to connect with community services and meeting with individuals in the prison system. And depending on how long they've been locked up, if you're working with them in a one-on-one setting and no one else is in the general vicinity of you, sometimes that will give, an inmate permission to try to push the boundary and say something inappropriate. And, and you have to stand your ground and you have to push back and say, no, that's not okay. And that's not this setting, that this setting does not promote that type of interaction between the two. So let me remind you of the role here and who I am and why I'm interacting with you right now. And again, that firm tone, that's not who I am at my core, but I recognize that that's what I have to do and who I have to be when I'm trying to deliver services to individuals that may blur the lines or don't see a line at all, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate your strength because that takes great strength, and practice, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure in the beginning it's probably a little uncomfortable having to be a little bit more assertive than what you're used to having to be. But it's necessary,
Mm-hmm.
definitely necessary, because if you don't have the proper boundaries, then you can then put yourself in a position to then become a victim as well.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say that situations like that can be jarring and maybe even off putting to new practitioners, especially if they've never had to deal with such um, interactions before. And, and I think that, that's when practitioners decide if they can work with certain populations or not, depending on where they recognize their strengths to be, or where they may find that they have a solid foundation, but they need to beef it up a little bit more, just so that they don't come across as um, not not non-professional, but unaware of what the conversation is trying to um, present on the other end. And so, if individuals who are opting to work in the field and to work with individuals who are either offenders or victims, or not necessarily victims, but have been inappropriately introduced to, sexual encounters and unwanted sexual encounters. um, it could lead to, and a practitioner questioning if this is the population I want to work with, or do I even want to continue to serve in this capacity. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
can 100% understand that. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is well, we spoke about this, and I asked you this question, so I just want the audience to be able to hear it. So, who are your favorite clients to work with? Since you work with a lot of different clients from all backgrounds, from those who have been victimized to the offenders, you work with individuals, families, all the above. So, what is your favorite audience to work with?
Well, if you would have asked me this question 20 plus years ago, I would have said I don't have a favorite. Anybody who needs help, I'm right there. But at this stage, I've kind of found myself riding most often with individuals who are seeking the help and wanting the help. Um, I understand that for those who are seeking the help and wanting the help, they're willing to do the work. Now, am I available for those who are not seeking the help, who don't want the help? I can say yes. I can say yes because I'm currently working with populations who are currently in state custody, and because they're foster care children, they're underage, and the system has identified with the team that they do need to have therapeutic services. So, yes, I do work with those individuals, but is that a challenging situation to be in? Absolutely. Um, I would say that when individuals find themselves in a position where they're told that they need to have therapy services, it's no good for the therapist and it's no good for the client because they don't want to be there. They don't want to work, or they don't want to do the work for whatever reason. Um, and rightfully so, you want to meet the client where the client is. So if the client is not ready, then it's not my favorite position to be in, to push a client to be ready because you're court mandated, or because a parent has said this is what you need, or because the school has said this is what you need in order to move forward. Because if it's not something that they want, they're not going to work it. And when they do work it and they still don't want it, relapse is not off the table. Relapsing is not off the table. So yeah, so I would say I enjoy the most working with clients who are ready for the services and want to do the work. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I can understand that, because if someone really is not in the mindset or mind frame to get the help that they truly need, even if they do need the services, but they can't recognize it for themselves, then it's like you basically just turning the wheel. You're just going to continue
Mm-hmm.
to turn the wheel because they're not going to be open to anything of value that you have to bring to them, because their minds are already made up. So
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely understand the challenges, or you're gonna get a lot of fluff. They're just gonna tell you whatever they feel like you want to hear, just so they can finish
Mm-hmm.
up the services and keep going. And they still stuck in their trauma because they never actually did the work. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we as a community have to get more comfortable with seeking help outside of just our friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we don't feel as judged, because as a professional, you have a right to be able to look into a situation and not having a judgment based off of really just the facts, and
Mm-hmm.
have them look at it in a totally different manner. So I love
Mm-hmm.
that. And because of that, I think, I was sharing with you, I think my daughter definitely needs some services. So you would be someone I would consider for services, because
Mm-hmm.
you have work with all types of clients, even those, like, you could see it
Mm-hmm.
from her perspective, and even the person who offended her. So I think that might be
Mm-hmm.
something amazing. So we would definitely talk off app about that, Queen. But this
Absolutely.
conversation has been amazing. I know you all might have some questions, and Barbara is here to really educate our community. I appreciate her, because through her story, that's how we heal. And Also, she has services that she can offer. Okay, so she work with the general public. She work with people from all over. I would advise you connect with her if you want to just have a brief conversation. You can join the OWL app. That's OWWLL. That's where I met her, and have that one-on-one conversation and be monetized as well if you want as a professional as well. And you can either download Barbara's. If you go to her page, she do have the link for Al, and she have a referral code, so you can utilize her referral code, or you can use my referral code, which is loyalty. Very simple and easy to remember. LOYALTY, and that's what it takes for sure. So I do encourage you all to join us. But at 8 o'clock in 3 minutes, we are going to go over to Clubhouse. Okay, so if you have a Clubhouse profile, or if you don't, go ahead and set you up a Clubhouse profile. Join us in the audio room, the Loyalty and Friends House on Clubhouse for a Q&A. Okay, where you can come to the stage and ask questions. And Miss Barbara going to have answers for you, and we'll just engage in dialogue. We'll be there for about a good 30 minutes because I do want to be respectful of her time, and I appreciate her for coming. And she has been an amazing, amazing guest. But man, I can't wait because I got other questions. I'm pretty sure others have questions. Those who are watching, come join us. We would love to hear your questions as well for Miss Barbara. And thank you all again, because without each and every one of you, there is no loyalty and friends. Okay. So I love each and every one of you. We will continue this conversation on Clubhouse, but make sure you join next Friday. Like, comment, and subscribe. We would love, love, love the feedback, and that's how we continue to grow. So, on that note, we are signing out until next time. Oh,
Thank
last
you
but
for
not least,
having
let
me.
them know how to support. Where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me at wannatalkitout.com. If you go to Wanna Talk It Out, it's WANNA talkitout.com. And you can access me there. You can leave a comment in the chat box. You can subscribe. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and we also have a podcast as well. So you can definitely find all of the different websites, social medias there. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll also have the ability to follow me on Threads as well. So again, it's
Awesome.
wannatalkitout.com. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Barbara. And let's jump on over to Clubhouse to continue this conversation in our Q&A session. Thank you all again. If you want to be a guest, make sure you go to my link in my bio. And that's her website. Want to talk it out at the bottom of the screen, just in case you would like to connect. And also, I forgot to tell you all, I have officially published my first book. So I'm
Oh,
very
yeah.
excited to announce it for my YouTube family. I have officially purchased published my first book, and it is exclusively on Amazon for pre-sale right now. So on pre-sale, you can actually purchase the book for $6.99. It will be in
Nice.
ebook form, and then of course once we go live, we will have the paperbacks available as well. So if you go to my link in my bio, you'll see a picture of the book. So if you click that link, it'll take you directly over. And of course, supporting me is giving yourself support, because the knowledge and the value you're going to get from this read is priceless. Okay, and I got
I
some great
am a
tips for
supporter.
you all. Yes, and of course, for the name of the book is called Loyalty in Everything: A Guide to Building Strong Relationships in Business and Life. And that's what it takes. We have to learn how to manifest and be loyal in everything that we do, so we can build on those relationships that are going to really set the way for us. So on that note, man, it has been amazing. We are signing out because we got to go get to our audio room on Clubhouse. Okay, it's starting as soon as we end this video. Okay, so thank you all, and we'll be hollering at you next Friday. Later.